They say history repeats itself, but on the battlefield, history doesn't repeat, it ricochets. And nowhere is that more true than the eternal argument between two NATO heavyweights, 5.56 by 45 NATO versus 7.62 by 51 NATO. I've carried both, I've fired both. In places where missing wasn't an option. And when you've seen what these rounds do in real gunfights, you stop arguing memes and start respecting physics. So let's kick this off with something every shooter should understand: the raw ballistic science behind each cartridge. 5.56 NATO, speed, fragmentation, and flat trajectory. The 5.56 fires a 224-inch projectile, typically between 55 and 75 grains, moving at velocities screaming past 2,700 feet per second. That insane speed gives it a laser-flat trajectory, and when it hits soft tissue, the bullet tends to fragment or tumble, creating wounds far more dramatic than the caliber suggests. But velocity isn't free. Light bullet, high speed, less mass downrange. A 5.56 loses energy quickly once you push past mid-range distance. 7.62 NATO, mass, momentum, and authority. Now let's talk about the old-school hammer, 7.62 NATO. It launches a .308 caliber projectile, weighing 147 to 175 grains at around 2,600 to 2,800 feet per second. Slower than 5.56? Yes, but heavier, much heavier. And that mass carries momentum like a freight train. At 500 yards, an M80 7.62 round still hits with over 1,700 foot-pounds of energy. 5.56 at that same distance? Closer to 950 foot-pounds. That difference becomes very real when the round has to punch through bone, barriers, or armor. Energy, reach, and real-world trade-offs. 7.62 stays supersonic past 800 yards and handles wind better due to its mass. 5.56 typically dips subsonic around 700 yards, depending on load and environment, but physics always demands payment. Recoil, 7.62 kicks roughly twice as hard as 5.56. Ammo weight, 100 rounds of 7.62, 5.3 pounds. 100 rounds of 5.56, 2.5 pounds. That difference matters when you're carrying 6 or 7 mags, plus water, armor plates, radios, batteries, med gear, and everything else that keeps you alive. Neither round is free. Each asks a price. Twist rates and bullet behavior. Now let's get nerdy for a second, because twist rate is the secret language of rifle barrels. 5.56 NATO. M855, 62 grain, thrives in 1.7 twist. M193, 55 grain, prefers 1.12 twist. MK262, 77 grain heavy match, loves high twist barrels and delivers violent fragmentation with extended wounding range. 7.62 NATO, less finicky overall. 175 grain M118, LR runs beautifully in 111 twist. Retains energy and stability better at long distance. Ballistics is always a dance between mass, speed, and spin, and both cartridges can be tuned perfectly depending on the mission. Bottom line, on paper, 7.62 hits harder, reaches farther, penetrates deeper, carries more momentum downrange. But 5.56 is lighter, faster, flatter, easier to carry in bulk, easier to control under stress. Paper doesn't lie, but it also doesn't bleed, move, hide, shoot back, or take cover. And that's exactly why ballistic charts only tell half the story. To understand the full picture, you need real-world experience, which takes us straight to the next chapter. Combat realities, tales from downrange. Ballistic charts look clean, numbers look tidy, graphs look scientific. But war doesn't follow charts. Real gunfights don't care about pretty trajectories or textbook wound channels. Ask any veteran who's humped a rifle through a real fight, and you'll hear a dozen different opinions, each one shaped by terrain, distance, weather, and pure chaos. I've carried 5.56 carbines. I've carried 7.62 battle rifles. And the truth is simple. Your environment decides the winner, not the caliber. Let's break down what shooters actually experience when the shooting starts. 5.56 NATO in close quarters. Combat, fast, light, and devastating up close. In tight alleyways, cramped rooms, jungle brush, urban corners, 5.56 shines. Why? Because low recoil means fast, accurate follow-up shots, and lighter magazines mean more rounds in the fight. You can maneuver quicker, you can stay on target, you can suppress harder, and you don't gas out as fast under a heavy loadout. That matters when adrenaline spikes and the fight becomes close, violent, and chaotic. But once combat stretches past 300 meters, across fields, across rooftops, across open desert, the weaknesses show up. Many troops in Iraq and Afghanistan reported exactly that. Hits at distance weren't stopping opponents immediately. Through cover, obstacles, or armor, the lighter rounds sometimes lost effectiveness. Some soldiers talk about hitting threats multiple times with 5.56 before seeing any real effect. Others swear it performed perfectly. Is that contradiction? No. That's context. A round that's lethal at 100 yards can feel completely different at 600. 7.62 NATO downrange, authority you can feel. 7.62 has a reputation earned the hard way. When it connects, it counts. One hit from that bigger slug, especially through barriers, often ends the discussion right there. Marksmen love it. Machine gun teams rely on it. Perimeter defenders swear by it. It doesn't just kill, it crushes. But that power comes with a cost. In fast-moving close-range gunfights, 7.62's recoil slows you down. The heavier rifle and heavier ammo drain your stamina, and your ammo supply dries up faster than you expect. As one veteran put it, I'd rather have more chances to shoot than fewer chances that hit harder. And that's the debate in one sentence. The reality of combat: movement, chaos, fatigue, adrenaline. Real combat isn't a range drill, it's sprinting, diving behind cover, shooting while winded, yelling commands, checking corners, pushing through fear, operating under fatigue. Under those conditions, the ideal caliber becomes whatever lets you stay mobile, stay accurate, and stay alive. Neither cartridge is perfect. Neither cartridge is magic. Mission dictates performance, not memes. Logistics and loadouts. The weight game. Ammo isn't just ammunition. In a real fight, ammo is currency. The more you have, the longer you stay in business. And no chapter in this debate matters more than this one, because weight decides endurance, mobility, and survival. Let's roll back to Vietnam for a second. Vietnam lessons. The moment weight changed the war. U.S. troops learned fast that hauling M14 rifles and 7.62 NATO ammo through jungle terrain was punishing. Heavy rifles, heavier magazines, thick humidity, miles of patrols. That weight added up fast. Then came the M16 and 5.56 NATO. Suddenly, rifle weight dropped by roughly 2 pounds. Soldiers could carry double the ammunition. That wasn't just a small upgrade. It changed tactics overnight. More ammo meant more suppressive fire, more maneuverability, more endurance on long patrols, more chances to win a firefight. The typical soldier could carry 210 rounds of 5.56 comfortably. With 7.62, the same weight only bought you half the ammo. In a jungle fight, that difference was life or death. Modern infantry, the weight problem got worse. Today's patrol loadouts are heavier than ever. Body armor plates, water, batteries, radios, night vision, medical gear, tools, optics. By the time you're geared up, most infantry guys are already carrying 60 to 90 pounds before you even load extra mags. So when you can cut ammunition weight in half, you're not just shaving ounces, you're recovering stamina, speed, and mobility. That's why 5.56 dominates general infantry use. But missions change, and sometimes you bring the heavy hitter. Weight isn't everything. When the mission calls for long-range engagements, Overwatch convoy protection, defensive fixed positions, high penetration need, punching through cover, troops still bring rifles chambered in 7.62 NATO. Because when you need reach and authority, 5.56 just doesn't replace a heavier round. The big picture: know your fight. The lesson of this chapter: 5.56 dominates when volume of fire and mobility matter. 7.62 dominates when precision and power matter. Every fight is a trade-off. Every mission tilts the scale differently. And the soldier who understands weight wins more fights. Barrier penetration and special roles. Now let's talk about something that tends to get buried beneath internet arguments. What these rounds actually do when they hit cover. Because real gunfights aren't fought on open ranges. They're fought around walls, doors, vehicles, trees, and whatever else you can hide behind when bullets start snapping past your face. And when it comes to punching through barriers, the difference between these two cartridges becomes painfully clear. 7.62 NATO, the classic barrier buster. 7.62 NATO has earned a reputation the hard way. It doesn't care what's in front of it. Intermediate barriers, walls, vehicle doors, trees, light cover, even thin metal. The heavier bullet holds onto its momentum after penetrating an obstacle. This is why designated marksmen still run 7.62 rifles. It's why machine gun crews rely on it. And it's why Overwatch teams love it. 7.62 shrugs off obstacles in a way 5.56 simply can't match at thicker cover levels. But don't underestimate 5.56. It hits harder than people think. 5.56 is often dismissed as too light, but that's not entirely fair, especially when we're talking M855 green tip. M855 uses a steel penetrator core, and it can punch through 6 millimeters of hardened steel plate under the right conditions. The newer M855A1, even better. In many cases, it outperforms older 7.62 ball rounds against certain types of cover and lighter armor plates. 5.56 isn't some weakling round. It's just not designed for heavy barrier destruction. But when we're talking true hardcover, 7.62 still wins. Put these two rounds against thick concrete, dense wood, brick walls, engine blocks, heavy structural materials. 7.62 outperforms 5.56 consistently. Mass matters. Momentum matters. And when you want to punch through real cover, 7.62 is your tool. Urban combat complication. Over-penetration. But here's where things get tactical. In dense urban environments, over-penetration becomes dangerous. A round that goes through multiple walls doesn't just keep going, it becomes a liability. You risk hitting civilians. You risk hitting friendlies. You risk bullets traveling into unknown spaces. 5.56's tendency to fragment or rapidly lose energy after hitting a barrier can actually be a safety advantage in cities and tight environments. Sometimes less penetration is exactly what you want. Special roles. The rifles that still rely on 7.62. When missions call for long-range precision or heavy penetration, 7.62 remains dominant. You'll see it in platforms like SR-25, M110, FN SCAR-H. These aren't volume of fire rifles. They're precision tools. They sit between a standard carbine and a full sniper rifle. Power without going magnum. Engineers have tried bridging the gap with mid-caliber rounds, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.8 SPC, 6.8 X51 NGSW, the Army's next-gen round. And the early results look promising. 6.8 delivers a blend of 5.56 controllability with much of 7.62's reach. But adoption takes time. Logistics take even longer. And until the dust settles, the two NATO classics still define the battlefield spectrum. Light and fast versus heavy and hard-hitting. The human element. You can memorize ballistic tables. You can quote muzzle energy, wind drift, and supersonic ranges all day long. But none of that replaces what actually happens when a human being, full of adrenaline, stress, and fear, steps into a real gunfight. When the shooting starts, physics is only half the story. The shooter becomes the other half. And this is where the 5.56 and the 7.62 feel completely different. Stress changes everything. Recoil that felt mild on the range can feel like a jackhammer after sprinting 200 meters in full kit. A rifle that felt manageable during training becomes heavy as a cinder block after hours of patrolling in the sun. That's when 5.56's advantages start to show up in a way charts can't measure. Lower recoil, faster follow-up shots, less muzzle rise, less shooter fatigue, more rounds on tap. When you're winded and shaking, that controllability matters more than muzzle energy numbers on a sheet. Accuracy under pressure often decides who wins the gunfight, not caliber. But confidence matters too. And 7.62 brings it. There's a psychological side to all this. When a marksman, machine gunner, or designated rifleman is running 7.62, they know they're holding something with authority. They know that if they connect, it counts. The shooter's confidence becomes part of the equation, and confidence affects performance. Carry a bigger hammer, and sometimes you swing like it. That mindset shouldn't be dismissed. The human factor is real, and it changes how soldiers fight. 5.56 favors movement. 7.62 rewards precision. 5.56 supports a shooter who's always on the move. You can shoot faster, carry more ammo, stay lighter on your feet, sustain fire longer, manage recoil easier. 7.62 supports a shooter who slows down, sets up, and makes each round count. It's deliberate, it's punishing, and when it hits, it's decisive. Both cartridges shape the shooter just as the shooter shapes the fight. Neither guarantees survival, neither promises victory, but each round pushes you into a different rhythm, a different style of fighting, and understanding that rhythm is the key to using the right cartridge for the right mission. The verdict: which one actually wins? Decades of warfare, thousands of firefights, endless barracks debates, every armory, every platoon room, every range day. The argument always comes back to the same question: 5.56 or 7.62? Which one actually wins? Well, here's the truth you won't hear in meme arguments. Both win, both lose. It depends entirely on the mission. Let's break it down the way real-world experience demands. For general infantry, 5.56 wins the fight. For the average soldier or Marine, 5.56 NATO is the superior general-purpose combat round. Why? Because it is lighter, easier to control, faster to shoot, quicker to maneuver with, simpler to carry in bulk, flatter shooting inside 300 yards. And here's the key: most firefights happen inside 300 yards. Modern loads like MK262 and M855A1 hit much harder than the older ammo most people base their opinions on. Inside realistic engagement distances, 5.56 is absolutely lethal and far more practical for the common infantry fight. 5.56 gives troops volume of fire, mobility, and accuracy under stress. That combination wins gunfights. For range and penetration, 7.62 takes the crown. When the fight stretches out, across valleys, rooftops, ridgelines, or open desert, 7.62 NATO starts taking over. It stays lethal past 600 yards. It punches through cover. It keeps its energy much farther downrange. It dominates when the fight is slower, more deliberate, and demands precision. If your job is Overwatch, defensive positions, designated marksman roles, long-distance perimeter security, engaging through barriers, 7.62 is your king. There is no magic bullet, only trade-offs. Every cartridge is a compromise. 5.56 trade-offs: less mass, less barrier penetration, can lose effectiveness at distance. 7.62 trade-offs: more recoil, heavier rifle, heavier ammo, fewer rounds carried, slower follow-up shots. Neither round is perfect. Neither round is useless. But a well-trained shooter with solid fundamentals and good judgment will outperform anyone relying on caliber alone. I've learned this firsthand, switching between a 5.56 carbine and a 7.62 rifle during deployment. The difference was night and day. The carbine was fast, light, reactive. The rifle was slower, heavier, but unshakably powerful. Each had its moment. Each had its place. Each had battles where it was the right answer and battles where it wasn't. So who wins? Simple. The round that wins is the round that matches your mission, your rifle, and your skill. Small fights want speed, big fights want power, and the battlefield will always punish the wrong choice. Your turn. Which one earned your trust? If you've made it this far, you're either a certified caliber nerd or you just love a good gun story. Maybe both. So now I want to hear from you. What did you trust downrange? 5.56? 7.62? Both? Which one earned your confidence when the chips were down? Drop your story in the comments. Every real-world experience helps paint the bigger picture. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into battlefield ballistics, hit that subscribe button, the armory, tap the bell, and share this video with the buddy who insists his caliber wins every time. Until next time, Keep your powder dry and your shots on target.